Hi all, and welcome to another week of the Truth, Honour and Integrity show. Tonight's January the 26th. This next song is going out to the Bushes, Clintons, May, Merkel, Nutty Arsehole and Trump, or anyone else who think they can mess with humanity. This song is for you. Hi all, and welcome to the Truth, Honour and Integrity show. It's that time of week again where we have some fun and games, learn new words and new ways of saying things. And we have our heads bent a bit. And there's a lot of lots going on. We'll try to get through as much as I can. There's quite a lot of notes I've got here tonight. There's quite a fair bit of intel. And quite a fair bit of bullshittery going on, I have to say that. But we'll have a good show as normal, and we'll have a laugh along the way, which is what it's all about. Right, for the benefit of those who don't have access to the Facebook page, I did an update. When was it? 4 days ago, Sunday. Certain things were going on, and I'm just going to run through them very, very quickly so we can lead into this show. Basically what the gist of that post was, what is currently going on is a takedown of the shadow groups, and that is escalating. It still is. There will be no financial meltdown of America or anybody else. That will not be allowed. 3, you'll expect to see more announcements of sudden deaths of famous people, and expect more of them to try to come forward to the public also as their programming breaks down. Psychic attacks, triggering and bizarre behaviour has and will ramp up. Make sure you are shielded at all times. Don't engage the triggered. Don't engage people not on your vibrational level. They are ramping up to pull you back into their loop. So next one was pain and trauma. Thoughts for the individual will increase as this year goes forward, leading to excess crying or emotional situations. Use the benefit of the inner work that has been described on many of these previous shows, and you'll be able to handle it in a better and a calmer and more rational way. It was expected. So what you don't need, you have to work that. We all have to work through it on an individual basis. Yes, you can have support from the group. Or people around you of like mind. Don't expect people who are not awake, the synthetics as we deem them, to help you through this situation. They won't understand it. So you have to work through it yourself, and hopefully get like-minded people around you to also assist you with it. Try not to project it onto others, or use alcohol, drugs or pharmaceuticals to dull it. It's vital at this time that you deal with the emotional and pain trauma. I'll cover a bit of this later on in the show, and we have to deal with it at this time. Females are being targeted due to their enhanced emotional states, and is the cause of the irrational behaviour on a wide scale that is currently being investigated by those behind the scenes, as we say. But I'd advise us all not to turn it into another male-female divide and conquer situation. Everyone needs help, just some more than others. You know, some of the marching behaviour. Boy, leaves much to be desired, I have to say. So that was the update. I'll be covering some of that during this show, and we'll start going through some of the news items first. I'll try not to get nasty at some of it, but some things in the news this week has kind of had me gritting my teeth, but there you go. Anyway, For those who enjoy the Facebook page, it's the same name as the show. For those who would like links to the show, as I've been asked for that, it is on the pin post of the Facebook page. But if you don't go on Facebook, you can go on www.spreaker.com/user/8955881. People who want to see what the People's Club is all about and can go and donate can go to the peoplesclub.org and have a look at that. Some good stuff. For the links for the show, you can, or the archives of all the shows are also on YouTube under the banner of Tommy Williams. So that covers all that. First news item. And breathe. So, the Kool-Aid drinking, National Zionist satanic biatch known as Madeleine Albright, actually it's Aldim, not Albright, Bill Clinton's former Secretary of State, is volunteering today to register as a Muslim to spite Donald Trump. Ooh, really? Well, go ahead, Mrs. Aldim, and make our day. Because under the directives of your own department, a Muslim is classed as a terrorist. Maybe it's time we put you in Guantanamo. Also today, the entire senior level of management officials at the US State Department has resigned, rather than serve under Donald Trump, and is the latest display of disquiet amongst many civil servants in Washington over the arrival of the new Commander-in-Chief. The 4 top senior officials at the equivalent of America's foreign ministry announced they were standing down. Well, you can't stand the heat, time to get out of the kitchen. Many of these news items can be looked at in both ways. I will provide both sides tonight, but I will call it as it is, or as I see it in certain items. Now, this could be a sign of cleaning the swamp. It could also be a sign of the division between the two factions. Maybe this might come clear as the show goes on. Scientists today also have decided, in their wisdom, to push the fake doomsday clock forward 1 minute. Ooh, let's all shit our pants. We're all gonna die because a fake clock has been pushed forward 1 minute. Really? Scientists. There's a misnomer in itself. Perhaps they need to better understand their own profession rather than pushing fake doomsday clocks minutes forward. Why don't you push it forward 10 minutes and then you can all die and we can all get on with our lives? Also clowns. Washington, Mr. Trump and his administration has introduced what has been described as a temporary media blackout at the Environmental Protection Agency, and has completely barred staff from awarding any new contracts or grants. Any emails sent to EPA staff since Donald Trump's inauguration on Friday detail specific prohibitions banning press releases, blog updates or posts to the agency's social media accounts. He's also ordered what is called a temporary suspension of all new business activities at the department, including issuing task orders or work assignments to EPA contractors. Now, these particular orders were supposed to have a significant and immediate impact on EPA activities nationwide, but now they've been suspended or banned or temporary or permanent. Time will tell. Similar orders have also gone out, barring external communications have been issued to other federal agencies in recent days, including the Agricultural and Interior Departments. Staffers at the EPA's Public Affairs Office are instructed to forward now all inquiries from reporters to the Office of Administration and Resources Management. Incoming media requests will be carefully screened. One directive said only send out critical messages, as messages can be shared broadly and end up in the press. I'll leave comments on that after the next two items. 4 more journalists, bringing it up to a total of 6. As of to date, there may have been more, have been charged with felonies after being arrested while covering the unrest surrounding Donald Trump's inauguration last week. And these journalists are now facing up to 10 years in prison and a $25,000 fine if convicted. A documentary producer and photojournalist, a live streamer, and a freelance reporter were each charged with the most serious level of offence under Washington DC's law against rioting after being caught up in the police action against demonstrators. The Guardian, which covered this article, learned of their arrests after reporting on Monday that the journalists Ivan Engel of Vocative and Alex Rubinstein of RT America has also been taken into custody by police and charged with felonies while covering the same unrest. Worrying, I have to say. Congress will move legislation this year providing up to $15 billion to build a wall along the Mexican boundary. Republican leaders have announced today they would not say how they prevent the massive project from worsening federal deficits. Well, they wouldn't do that, would they? And they were meeting resistance from some GOP lawmakers. House Speaker Paul Ryan and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell told reporters at a GOP strategy retreat that they were planning legislation providing $12 to $15 billion for constructing the wall. The wall, as most will know, is one of President Trump's chief goals. Ryan said the goal is to complete that and other major bills in 2017, but the leaders offered no details on how the wall would be paid for. Interesting. So those last 3 news items need to be looked at. And it can be looked at in 2 ways, as I've said. But it also needs to be looked at directly, and to me is of genuine concern. A clampdown on journalists, stifling or controlling government departments, and building walls to divide people. Where have we heard that before? Yep. Nazi Germany. Same thing. Are the Mexicans that bad that we have to build a wall? What about the drug people or the agency drug people in this country? Do we build a wall round them? After all, it's them that pays them. What was the name of that particular project? Drake covered it extensively in Cosmic Voice, where they were given the Mexican drug runners guns. Who do you think supplied them? Well, suddenly the Mexicans weren't a problem then. They weren't a problem when they were filling jobs in that largely is unwanted or classed as unwanted in the agricultural and construction industry. But suddenly they're now declared beneath American people and should be walled in. I'm sorry, but that's not the way to go. It's just not. And I understand people's fears. So we all have fears to a certain degree. But where did the fears come from? It doesn't come from us. It comes from them. Where they're directing the fear via the synthetic news. Ooh, Mexicans are a problem. Ooh, Puerto Ricans are a problem. Syrians are a problem. Muslims are a problem. Russians are a problem. Chinese are a problem. How come everyone's a problem? Everyone's not a problem. When people are left to their own devices, without interference or political agenda or cultural differences or religious differences, people actually get on rather well. And building the... You remember, apart from the Chinese wall, which was still, I think most people are still trying to work out to this day why that was built. But there's been two famous walls within the last 100 years. They've been both built by the same people. National Zionists, aka Nazis, separating Western and Eastern Germany. Saving them from the communists, he said. Well, we've all learned that the Cold War was utter bullshit, right from the off. But they'll still play it, won't they? The commies are coming. Well, where are they? They've been coming for 50 years. It must be the slowest march in history. Then the next wall, Israel. Same people, same Khazarians that operated in Nazi Germany. And now we're talking about building a wall in this country and shutting people out. Like I've said many times, how can you be an immigrant on your own planet? How can you class another human being as alien or illegal? That's their rules, not ours. And the sooner we realise that, and all of us, the better. It's just more divide and conquer. I don't want to hear people saying bad Mexican, bad this and bad that. That's their game, not our game. Is there bad Mexicans? Yeah. Is there bad Americans? Absolutely. Good and bad everywhere. It's a matter of choice. But you don't brandish a whole country and its peoples in the same because of a few bad ones. We in America are suffering the same consequences because of the US Inc. military. Smashing countries into oblivion, and have been for the last 70 years. Should we be classed as the same as them? No. So those who are supporting a wall ought to be careful. What if they decide to put a wall up in your town and keep you in? Well, they can't do that. Well, they said that in Nazi Germany. They said that in Palestine. Said a lot of things couldn't happen, but it all did. Why? Because we fell for their game. Time and time and time again. Divide and conquer. Let's stop falling for their divide and conquer, and let's start supporting people no matter what nationality, colour, gender, sexuality, even religion. The enemy are the ones that create the agendas, not the people. Washington again. Now apparently this may be overturned, but officials say the Obama administration in its waning hours defied Republican opposition and quietly released $221 million to the Palestinian Authority that GOP members had been blocking. He also told Congress on Friday it was going ahead with the release of another $6 million in foreign affairs spending, including $4 million for climate change programs, really, and $1.25 million for UN organisations. The same UN who has no sovereignty and has no authority. Oops. Now, hopefully, Mr. Trump will do something right and cancel that. Not that I don't think the Palestinians deserve fixing, but it's not down to the American people to keep paying for everybody else's misfortune. You know, well, we're like a walking charity. Billions for bloody Israel. What to buy? Is it to buy food for the Israeli people? No. It's to buy weapons. All funded with our money. And you get clowns like Neil Keenan telling Americans have to get off their arse and go to work. We have worked. We've worked enough to fund other people. Like NATO. 80% of NATO's funding comes from the American people. Enough of this shit. Aid. What's the UN for? Where's all their funds and the IMF? They're supposed to provide aid, allegedly. Just about tired of American people who are abused and criticised globally because of the clowns in the military and clowns in the politicians. Beggars belief. Israel. Now, if there's any doubts of concern regarding Mr. Trump, this particular article might make things a bit clearer. Israel has approved hundreds of new settlement homes in occupied East Jerusalem after the staunch pro-Israel US President Donald Trump took office. Jerusalem Deputy Mayor Maya Turgeman told AFP, "Now we can finally build." The Israeli PM reportedly delayed approval given the opposition from Barack Obama, who infuriated Israel apparently by allowing a UN resolution against settlements to pass. So now settlements in East Jerusalem are considered illegal under international law, even though Israel disputes this. Mr. Turgeman went on to say, "I was told to wait until Trump takes office because he has no problem with building in Jerusalem. The rules of the game have changed with Donald Trump's arrival as president. We no longer have our hands tied as in the time with Barack Obama." He said the delay was at the request of Mr. Nutty Asshole in the wake of the December 23rd UN Security Council resolution opposing Israeli settlement construction. The US refusal to veto the resolution marked the lowest ebb of deteriorating relations between the Obama administration and the Israeli government. Israel doesn't have a government. They have a group of nationalistic, fascist clowns who have no interest in humanity whatsoever. So Mr. Obama, regarding opposing new settlement homes as a key plank in pursuing a possible two-state solution, and so ending the decades-old conflict between Israelis and Palestinians. Now the thing is, the Zionists, not Israeli people, have no interest in ending war or the separation at all. None whatsoever. These are the same jackbooted thugs who have waged war against humanity for the last 2,000 years. And why, at regular intervals throughout that time, they were thrown out of 109 countries. And yet, Mr. Trump is allowing them to restart settlements against the Palestinian people. Make of that what you will. It doesn't augur too well. Right, a little bit of change, a little bit of different news. Turkey shift to the international trade in national currencies, or this is what they're considering, that will liberate Ankara from the oppression of the US dollar. Mr. Erdogan said the currency is used as a weapon regarding the number of countries, including Turkey. A new period of trade in national currencies begins now, he said. If we buy something from Russia, we pay them in rubles. If they buy something from us, they pay in liras. He has spoken to China and Iran and others and will disseminate this practice. He went on to say, we will liberate our country from the oppression of the rate of the dollar. And he urged citizens of Turkey to convert their foreign currency into Turkish lira or gold, following cutting interest rates to stimulate economic growth this week. So it's another country who decided that they will no longer go ahead with the fiat money known as the US dollar. I'm going to leave that one till last. That's bad enough. Now there was in India, there's been a test being done, and some of you will have noticed it in the news items about the past laws cancelling all high value currency notes. This is one of the first steps towards a cashless society in India. Now bear in mind, this is at the behest and or the watching eyes of the US State Department and others. Now this week Mr. Trump decides to meet with the said PM of India, Modi, for discussions. You can make of that what you will. Now perversely, back in 2010, the US passed a law, the Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act, or FACTA, which requires financial firms to disclose foreign accounts held by US citizens, in inverted commas, and report them to the US IRS tax office, or foreign banks face steep penalties. The EU signed on to the intrusive FACTA despite strong resistance. Then, using FACTA as the model, the Paris-based OECD drafted an even tougher version of FACTA in 2014, allegedly to go after tax avoiders. Up to now, 97 countries have agreed to the tough OECD bank disclosure rules. Very few have refused to sign up, but the refusers include Bahrain, Nauru, Vanuatu. Those of you remember, we covered that unfortunate events on that island in Cosmic Voice, what was about 12 months ago. And the other one was refused is the United States. Well, would you believe it? It is now being labelled the world's biggest tax haven, except for its people. But there you go. So, can you see a pattern here? Well, some of us will. Washington forces disclosure of secret bank accounts of its citizens or companies abroad, while at the same time lifting control or disclosure inside the United States of private banking accounts. Now, it'll come to no surprise, and people will know the name of this place and what it entails, that such experienced private bankers such as London's Rothschilds & Co. have opened offices in Reno, Nevada. Yes, where have you heard that name before? A stone's throw away from all the other gambling casinos. One big gamble. And they are doing a booming business, moving the fortunes of wealthy foreign clients out of offshore havens such as Bermuda or Switzerland, which are subject to the new OECD international disclosure requirements, and right into Rothschilds run trusts in Nevada, which are exempt from those disclosure rules. You just love it, don't you? Not. Rothschilds & Co. director Andrew Penny noted that as a result, the United States today is effectively the biggest tax haven in the world. Today, Nevada Mayor Lansky money laundering project of the 1930s with established legalised gambling is becoming the new Switzerland, expecting Wyoming and South Dakota to also add it into, and they are close on the heels of Nevada to implement the same thing. Reno, Nevada at Rothschilds, where does that all click in? Well, that clicks in with the RV, doesn't it? All the 800 numbers. Now you know who's been running that particular operation, like we've been telling you for the last 3 years. Same clans, Rothschilds. And there's many radio show hosts and people, bloggers, talking about the RV, and it's going to do this, and I'm going to get this, and you're going to increase this fortune and that fortune. No, it's all gone, all been swallowed into the Rothschilds Trust again. All you did was hand over valid money, or what is considered valid money, US dollars, from bogus money, dinars, dong and zims. You traded your dollars for monopoly money. The irony is, the US dollar is also monopoly money. Last news item before I get into what is some fairly substantial intel. And it's not going to sit pretty either. I know most of you will be aware of this. On Monday, a press briefing of the White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer implied that Donald Trump intends to resume and complete construction on the controversial Dakota Access Pipeline. Without explicitly outlining the president's plans, Spicer said, "I'm not going to get in front of the president's executive actions, but I will tell you that areas like Dakota and the Keystone Pipeline are areas that we can increase jobs, increase economic growth and tap into America's energy supply more. That's something that he's been very clear about. Now, back in December, the people connected to this show negotiated with the US Army Corps of Engineers and managed to get a suspension and closure of the pipeline. And they were denying an easement allowing construction under the Lake Oahe. I hope I said that correctly. I'm sure there'll be someone who'll correct me. Oahe. Perhaps I should learn the pronunciation of that. Well, anyway. The bit of water where the pipeline's going. That sounds better. And that put the future of the 3.8 billion pipeline in limbo following discussions with the Army Corps of Engineers, and they blocked it. And yeah, here's Mr. Trump in his first week putting it back. And we thought he was the saviour. I've got no more to say to that. Sorry, just don't. I will cover a bit more of that later in the show. I'm just trying to go through about 50 pages of notes. It feels like 50 pages. Scientists, we've covered that. And right, 1:45. Should be able to get through the intel. I'll cover some of the other stuff later. Where are we? Right, here's some intel. Rothschilds. Don't we just love them? Like a hole in the head. Rothschilds are throwing mud everywhere and hoping something sticks so they can get back in. We mentioned last week that they're now trying to get back into the UK because their eastern venture with the Asian faction has failed. Oops. But they still continue. What you've got to bear in mind is in the Rothschilds' minds, they own the whole planet. And I'm not joking. They think they own the whole planet. They own nothing. It's all an illusion. An illusion many countries and many top brass are now seeing through, thankfully, at long last. The mists of insanity perpetrating the agency people and some of the militaries around the world seems to be clearing a bit at long last. So the Rothschilds now is putting enormous pressure on Australia, and they're trying to get Australia to sign over all of its resources to them. They may find, or I'll hope they will find, that they will lose that battle. Like this week they lost Africa. They tried to sign over all of the resources of Africa, and the people connected to this show blocked it. And I can tell you now, they are really, really pissed. And I think it's funny. Not only are the Rothschilds pissed, but so are the elders. It's those famous Chinese elders. Apparently they're flaming mad at the moment. Hope they like lemons. Go and suck on a few. Now, the next, what this is basically saying is the Rothschilds are now looking at all the Commonwealth countries. For those not familiar with how many there is, I would suggest you go and look at the names. These all used to come under the banner of the UK or British Empire. And there's 52 nations: Australia, New Zealand, India, Canada, America being just a few of them. So it carries a lot of weight across the planet. Hong Kong was another region where the British Empire controlled. A lot of them started going back as, or being classed as, independent, but on the condition in the UN that the sovereign country, or part declared sovereign country, voted with the mother country being Britain in the UN. So Britain owns the UN because it has 52 votes. Every other country has one. Now all communist countries, Commonwealth countries with resources at this point are being targeted heavily by the Rothschilds and the Chinese elders, Asian faction. All 52 of them. And that includes Australia, New Zealand in particular, and also the UK and America. Now India haven't been targeted as yet, but they're playing fun and games at the moment because they're doing some of the hacking, the high level hacking. It's not just the Chinese and the Russians that hack, you know. A lot of hacking has been coming out of India, it's been proven. And also the Indian government are completely draining the economy there bit by bit, and also claiming it's a hacker that's doing it, but it's not. And we've had several incidents of being reported of what's going on in India. So this is a way of, let's devalue the currency, let's take some notes out of circulation, and let's then hack into it and take the rest. All to keep the same clowns in the game. What's going on in World War III front? Well, as often said on this show, they won't get it. The clowns still try, but they won't get it. Now China this announced that if the other superpower, which is us, America, doesn't have the capacity to be the world leader, China will take over, according to them. And it's rumoured that an ICBM missile was fired close to the Russian border, although that's yet to be confirmed. So this sounds like the elders and the Bush clan is pushing hard for a war with China now, which is probably why all the fun and games in the South China Sea. And the object is to isolate Russia from China. Reality is, on that front, is we don't want or need no superpower on this planet or anything else taking over. We the people will look after ourselves, like I said earlier, when we're left alone. We're more than capable of looking after ourselves, so we don't need no self-titled superpower to tell us what to do, whether that's here or China or anywhere else for that matter. So that's what's going on the World War III front. That's on one side of China and Russia. On the other side, we have the NATO clans, aka Nazis, and they're still pushing for a fight with Russia on the Eastern European front. Quite an easy solution to end that, by America cutting funding of NATO via Congress and forced withdrawal of all our troops and equipment that was being supplied to NATO, and bring them all home. All of it. The 80% that the American people own money funding NATO can be better spent on the American people, funny enough. That ends that nonsense and wars. But NATO is pushing on the western side of Russia, and the clowns on the other side are pushing, or trying to push, the Asian faction into fighting with Russia also. So it's a bit of a pincer movement. Now, last year I was shown an official document, and it was fairly detailed, of all the wealth each individual country had, even down to the ounces and pounds and all that stuff, and it was quite extraordinary to see. What was also extraordinary to see was the transfer of wealth that went from all the Western countries to the East, aka the Asian faction, not the Chinese government, the Asian faction. And this is why over the last 10 to 15 years, all our jobs in the Western world, jobs, offices, plants, etc., were outsourced to that part of the world, all in readiness for the gangsters like Rothschild et al. To run operations from there. Now, there was a 100-year charter, for those who don't know. Those who listen to the show regularly will know. A 100-year charter of Western control of the financials via the City of London, and also through its puppet bank known as the Federal Reserve, and the charter ran out in December 2013. So the Federal Reserve in reality no longer exists. And yet the illusion continues, doesn't it? The bar licenses no longer exist, and yet the illusion continues. Remember the directive, the motu proprio from the Pope in 2013? That ended in September the 1st, 2016. And yet, on it goes. Maybe we need to get a proper president in who can end this nonsense once and for all. Anyway, the Federal Reserve Charter ran out in December 2013, and all of this under the illusion it will be a new change, because the East is going to do things all very transparent and different, with systems like BRICS and the AIIB. And the reality is that whole episode is total bullshittery. BRICS and AIIB. It's the same people operating the same thing, giving us the illusion it's something different, and by being something different, it's a complete change. No, it's not. Well, many of us saw through this bullshittery and decided to counteract it. But the Rothschilds, as we know, like to back both sides, so they win anyway, except this time it's a big oops moment. Rothschilds and the elders currently are backdooring the UK. In other words, they're trying to get deals signed off and out to the East and claim all the UK resources. And the Rothschilds have now turned the focus back onto the UK and America again and trying to get back in. They failed. The UK is not accepting them. As mentioned in the show previously, about a month ago, the Rothschilds also tried to backdoor their way into the Bank of International Settlements and claim all the funds as their sovereign right, and that failed. Now, the UK is currently being sold off by the big-eared bastard known as Charlie, or Prince Charles. He's signing things off because his mother is not complying with them anymore. She's just not. And the deals going out the back door is straight to the Asian faction and some clowns in the Chinese government with contracts. Not many, but there is some. But rest assured, for the people of the UK, these backdoor deals will not fly and have been or will be negated. All of them. Now the word on the street is some of the Commonwealth people, let's just call them that, are very unhappy with Prince Charles. I wonder if we'll get a Diana style event. Time will tell. Cabal infighting has increased to a max now, which is fun to see. For me it is. I'm sure the listeners also. The gist of it is we will get a lot of exposure and disclosure out of it. It doesn't mean to say it's for our benefit. I'll cover more of that later. And one theatre of infighting currently is the UK House of Lords and the House of Parliament. No, they're not the same. Parliament knows what's going on. They've spoken to the people connected with this show and they're on board, like most of the other 208 countries. And they are fighting against the House of Lords, who are supporting Prince Charles, aka Satan's spawn. The Queen is continuing to stand firm against the threats as it stands. I don't expect that to change, as I've been told. Now, for those of you not familiar, the House of Lords are basically a load of arse bandits and ritual trash. Of course, we have similar elements here in the US. Some of our top brass, part bush humpers, and telling everyone that they must obey Rothschilds, and the other half are saying we're broke and the country must come first and go and F yourselves. This is the division of what's going on in America currently. So we will see what happens, how that all shakes out, but bit by bit the Bush and Rothschilds and other factions are being exposed on a daily, in fact hourly basis of what they're up to, and more of the top brass are now seeing it for what it is. I don't know how much they need to see before reality finally knocks their skulls into shape and they deal with it. So this is what Mr. Trump is currently facing. Two factions. And it doesn't, to be quite honest, it doesn't really matter whether he's good, bad or indifferent. Not one jot. Because at the end of the day he's still operating under the shadow government, faction bullshittery. So I'm asking the members, please don't think he's there to save us or the country. He's not. No matter how much you may want it to be, and heaven knows we all do, but we have to face reality here and not deal in illusions. Mr. Trump has watched, out of all the things he's done, I'm going to focus on one item. He's watched the protesters being brutally assaulted and arrested on their own land. And in the first week he throws it right in the face and continues with the pipeline. Is that the sign of a saviour for us, the people? Well, is it? Because what he's done, he's put this whole nation on water alert. Whether he likes that or not. Now it will get changed. Whether Trump likes that idea or he doesn't. We will prevent that pipeline going ahead. Of course he's signed up for the pipeline. Why? Because he's invested in it. Is he any different to them? The illusion is he is, because he's not Hillary, that it has to be better. No, it doesn't. The only way it's going to be better is if the people elect someone from the people, not from the cesspool that is operating in Washington DC. Some will argue Trump is part of the people, employing 3 ex-Goldman Sachs in his cabinet. Really? Signing up pipelines, arresting journalists, building walls. No, it's sad. Now, this is going to be the final item as I've run over the hour. Trump is trying to grant sovereignty over the Native American lands. And the problem with that is if the Indians want their own sovereignty, total sovereignty over their own lands, and I can understand that. What the negotiators want is for them to be sub-sovereign of the government. And the reason that being for that is that they will then get government subsidies and concessions and also protection. If they go full sovereign, bear in mind the military is not allowed to intervene on our soil, and that will open them up for a Rothschild's takeover of all the resources. Are they going to be able to defend themselves from the Blackwoods and the Z's and all the other dodgy mercenary groups employed by the Rothschilds? No. And that's the only reason that the government wanted them to become sub-sovereign, where they were given and have been given full discretion over what they do with the land and the resources. So if they wanted to go and sell all the oil or uranium to Putin, that's their choice. The government would not intervene in that. And they've been told that. But they think they can go it alone. And that's dangerous. Apart from the danger of being taken over, because they would lose protection under the country's sovereignty. What if some of the more rogue elements of the tribal people decided, we're going to claim total sovereignty and we're going to turf all you Europeans out? You think that could... Well, people go, oh, that won't happen. Palestinians thought that. Back in 1947 when he set up Israel. Syrians thought that. Yugoslavian people thought that. Serbians. Threw them all out. So we have to be very careful, and they have to be a lot more considerate in their negotiations. It's not done to control them. They've literally been given everything that they've wanted. There was only a few minor conditions, and that was the main one, which was for their protection. Not for government control, because they haven't got any control. And this is a very sad state of affairs with the tribal people. Basically, they want the cake and eat it. Well, sometimes you have to bend both ways, and I hope in the near future that they will do, because it's total insanity what they're doing at the moment. They're putting themselves, everything they've gained, in danger. You know, if the Rothschilds are cut off from all the other countries and nations in the Commonwealth, which is the way it's going, where's the last resources left that they can attack with no standing army? Oops. Something to think about. Right. Here's what we all wish for. Hi all, and welcome back to the second hour. Now, the first hour may have been difficult for some, as I know there is still people who want Trump to clean the swamp and do everything. You know what? So do I. But if I see elements of bullshittery like I've seen this week, we're not going to hide behind the illusion like we have done for 8 years with Obama. Obama was different, he wasn't Bush, remember. Like I said, the legacy that Obama left behind is that people have forgotten how bad idiot Bush was. That's an indictment in itself. So the fact that Trump is not Obama, or he's a different party, doesn't mean to say it's going to be different or better. It just is. The proof is always in the pudding. And the reality is, what we're seeing now is a factions war in Washington DC, with the two factions that are left in this country are playing each other off. So Trump has mentioned about going after NATO. Great. He's not doing it for the benefit of the people. He's doing it to hurt the other faction for the benefit of his own faction. Now, this doesn't mean to say it's all bad news, because it's not. Because as these things take place, we're going to get a raft of exposure. For our cause and our movement is to wake people up. People, even in the unawake, will start seeing through the illusion of the politic parasite that's gone on in this country, and the control system via the UK. So we will get benefits out of it, make no mistake about it. Mr. Trump will do certain things that have us all jumping through hoops and going, yay. But don't think for 1 minute, at this point, and I mean at this point, he's operating on behalf of all the American people, because he's not. He has no option, like I said in the first hour, to do anything. There's still a faction war going on. Now, if he wanted to do something positive with a wall, the best thing he can do is wall off the District of Columbia from the rest of America, where then we can get on with doing things for the better for the people, for the rest of the country, and let them wallow behind the wall. But this idea of building walls is divide and conquer, no matter which country it's separating you from. Imagine if, I'll use an example, and it's I know one particular member is not too happy, but imagine if West Virginia, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Connecticut all decided, we don't like Pennsylvanians, let's build a wall round them. Imagine the uproar. That can't happen. They said that in Germany. It's a lesson for us all. When you think something can't possibly happen, and because it's only Mexico, but you got to remember, these people plan for the future, like what I mentioned in the first hour over India and the cashless society. It's a test program. Where do you think it's going to get rolled out next? These are the things you have to think about, not the bullshit that they've been pushing, that Mexico's the problem. It's not. The problem's in Rome, black nobility, forget the Pope. Problems in City of London, and problems in District of Columbia. There's a problem in Moscow. And there's also a big problem in Asia with the faction there. Nothing to do with Mexicans. No more than Iraq or Iran or Afghanistan was to do with any other trouble. We can't keep falling for the illusion. Now they come out with the most ridiculous conspiracy theories, like Bin Laden, that he masterminded overtaking the so-called highest national security and protection anywhere in the world, and fly planes into 2 buildings, all from a cave in Afghanistan. It's the most ridiculous conspiracy theory ever, and it can be done by 19 people with Stanley knives. The mind boggles. But the people fell for it, because it's too easy to believe the narrative. What I'm asking you is to look at it in the cold light of day. Let's not be following what they're telling us. This is why we're in the awake community, because we don't follow what they tell us. And just because Trump is being perceived as one of us doesn't make him one of us. There's clearly starting up oil pipelines that no one in America wants. In fact, no one in the Western world wants oil pipes anymore, because they're all aware of the new technology where we don't need it. Drug problem in Mexico is a big issue. Who caused that? The same clowns operating out of Langley. Who caused Al-Qaeda, Taliban, ISIS, ISIL? Is the same clowns out of Langley. And we're talking about walling them in. I think it'd be far better to wall Langley in and shut them down, and the District of Columbia, because they're a blight on this country and its people and humanity, where they think they own everything. The reality is they own nothing. The Rothschilds own nothing. The people own all the land. The native tribes don't own American land. The people do. The people own all the resources of the planet also. It's not there for the benefit of a few because you lived there prior. No. That's their way of thinking. It's not our way. So we have to impose our way of thinking onto them and ignore what they're trying to tell us or what agenda they're trying to push us into. Like I said earlier, I would love no better than Trump to do what he said he was going to do, clean the swamp. Have we seen Hillary arrested, even if she was alive? No. McCain? No. Kerry? No. Obama? No mention of it. It's all rhetoric to keep the public distracted and entertained, to think that this is the next person that's going to come and save them. They're not. Just not. I've been talking about the series 100, the 100. There was, I apologise for this being a spoiler, but it's the right time to mention it. There's a particular line in that series, and for those of you who haven't watched it, you should. All the stuff that we've been mentioning about loops and AI and Matrix and all that stuff, and genetically modified humans, is all in that series. It also describes what took place 2 loops ago, the nuclear war on this planet. It tells you about the Ark. The Ark wasn't a boat on the ocean. There was one significant line when the Sky People, as they were called, were doing battle yet again. And she asked, where are all the good guys? The reply was, there is none. That's what applies here. Now please don't take that the wrong way and go, oh my God. Let me finish. But that was the key line to me in that show. Where are all the good guys? There is none. You know why? Because they hadn't created any. That's the reality. They hadn't created any. So they then set about creating good guys by making alliances. This is what's took place on this planet over the last few years. We've mentioned it many times in Cosmic Voice, and more so in THI, where we're getting cabal members stepping down and helping humanity. So the bad guys become the good guys. We're also seeing some of the good guys turning into bad guys. This is the way it goes. Some people in the alternative media who were thought were good guys turned out they're not. They're in it for their own ends. Cabal plans to distract us, and boy have they done a good job at that. So this is where we stand. We create good guys. We create our own system, not theirs. Someone sent me some word magic this week, and it's about the play on words of vote. Vote or volt, as in energy. So as you volt, play on words, vote, you're giving them your energy. Now many of us that listen to this show decided to not play the binary game, Republican or Democrat, Trump or Hillary. We chose to play the trinary game, which is outside of the matrix. Make no mistake on that. They don't want you thinking in the third person or outside the box. Outside the box is outside the matrix. You start operating on a trinary thought process, and you close down their system. Well, I'll have to vote Trump because I don't want Hillary to win. No, you don't have to. That's binary thinking. You have another choice. You vote neither. Blue pill, red pill. Why do you have to take one or the other? You don't. That's the illusion. That one's better than the other. It's not. Is light better than dark? Some would argue, yeah. But without the dark showing you how to be of the light, can light really exist? And the same applies the other way. So, is it light or dark? No. It's a mixture of both. Somewhere in between. Do you love or hate somebody? Again, it's binary thinking. Somewhere in between's the best. Yes, there might be elements where the opposing opposite is the better choice, but not always. Like I said, you can't have light without the dark showing you what is light. The dark don't know they're different unless they see the light. So it has to work in balance. Now, here's some of the things that Trump has done. I did say I would balance it. And he's cancelled the TPP deal, which is good. The TAPP will also be cancelled, as I understand it. Next that will get cancelled is NAFTA. I remember it was all saying, oh, we don't want that implemented. It was actually implemented in 1994, NAFTA. I travelled to Mexico in 2011 and I thought my passport would be stamped, only to be told in Miami, you didn't leave the country. So I said to the immigration guy, so what you're telling me is NAFTA is in place? His reply was, I would shut up if I was you and get out, or I'll take the passport off you. So NAFTA is going to be the next agreement, which will be cancelled, which will save the disruption. That will go right from Mexico to Canada. No doubt trampling over more native lands and sacred lands and trees being chopped down like was planned. One of the other things that's been implemented to be banned is, or appears to be at this point, is torture. Those of you who have read some of the I was going to cover some of the documents, but there's that much news this week. It's probably going to take me the best part of this before it's going to be the final hour before I can get to questions. So some of those documents are rather revealing of how they get around being able to implement torture, creating boundaries that don't exist. Why do you think they went to Guantanamo? Because it doesn't come under the US government's control. If it's not under US government control, the land, then they can commit torture. Such nice people. Torture for what? What did they actually do? This is kind of being forgotten by most people. What did the Iraqi people actually do to America? What have the Syrian people done to America? And yet we're hearing people in the alternative community saying we don't want no Syrians. Do you think they were attacking America? No, they were attacking mercenaries. Someone started dropping bombs and firing artillery into Pennsylvania or Ohio or Georgia or West Virginia. Would you just sit there and not fight back? What do you expect them to do? As mentioned earlier, the Keystone and Dakota pipelines have been put back on, and the Israeli settlement's new building project is now going ahead, which is in violation of the UN resolution. Now, one thing that has been done, that's been mentioned on this show previously, because of the people connected to this show, it was them that implemented it. So kudos to them and thanks to them. Is the restoration of America's sovereignty. How our people can't push it through the legislation, but they did implement it, which then went on to members of Congress and the House, or some of the politicians, to then file that bill. Now, what this basically means is, again, we've already mentioned, the UN has no sovereignty status anymore, so it can't rule or control anybody. It's an illusion that they still are. But the filing of America's sovereignty means we will have no further ties to the UN, World Bank or IMF once it's implemented. Now, it's not just happening in America. We've filed for all countries and all islands to have their own individual sovereignty. So, likes of the ABC Islands, who are under the control of Holland, will go back to those people, not Holland. The US Virgin Islands will go back to the islands themselves, not under US control. That's the implications of what's taken place. That was behind the scenes is now in the forefront. Major news. As I understand it, it will take the rest of this year to gain sovereignty for all 209 countries. Once that is completed, it will be filed for the people to have sovereignty also. The countries have to come first. But every person will also be filed to be a sovereign entity. No more UN cattle numbers. So that's big news. Further news, Langley, the clowns, is in complete and utter turmoil at the moment. Of course, this show was first to mention that there was two factions in Langley that morphed into three. Like we said last week, I'm glad somebody did a rather detailed article stating all three factions and what they're up to. Well, what's taken place now is the CIA-2, which was rogue, morphed into a CIA-3, which is even more rogue. And the reason being is there's now a war of the factions and also of the people in the CIA. Many are now coming on board with We the People. They've seen through the lies and the illusion that and the total bullshittery that they've been fed for all their working lives. And the CIA too has split. The ones that are on the side of humanity have fell back into one or gone into hiding for obvious reasons. 3 continues with their skullduggery, but their power and control diminished. You're going to hear those words a lot more in the coming months. And battles have ensued within that particular organisation. Now, El Chapo, the Mexican drug lord, has been handed over to America. Do you think it's a coincidence it's been done now? Think again. As this will tie into the investigations ongoing into all operations of the rogue elements of CIA 2 and now 3. So drugs, trafficking, child trafficking, surveillance of the public, mainly alternative media, or the ones who are not cabal sponsored anyway, arms deals, and creating of false enemies like Al-Qaeda, ISIS, ISIL, Hezbollah, Taliban, all created and or funded by the rogue elements in the CIA. Mr. Chapo is singing. We look forward to hear what his tune has to say in the coming days and weeks. So, a couple of more items before we get into some questions. To sum up what's going on in America currently, is what we're watching play out is a factions war between 2 factions. It's not a people's war, sadly, not yet. But we will get disclosure out of it, and we will get bigger exposure of what we've been telling the non-awake of what's been going on. It will ramp up. Trump at the moment has no option. He's not the saviour. Can he help at a later date? He best do. Because if he doesn't, he will be removed. Their time is done. It was playing out the last remnants of it. The cabal are playing out their movie of taking each other out. It's all planned. And the other thing you're going to need to watch out for, some have disappeared, names that were familiar. A couple that came up this week and thought, you know what, I haven't heard from them in a while. The more prevalent alternative media people. Some of them in the near future will do a complete 180 on their narrative. Watch for it. It is coming. Where are we next? I must cover that because I did mention it in the update. This what has been termed the synthetics march against Trump by me. You know, this is really plays into the 2 worlds that we've been talking about on this show. Are those people really in touch with reality? That they think Trump is going to do worse than Hitler ever would. That's the insanity of what we're dealing with. when people saying, well, you know, we're sick of it and we want disclosure and they can't handle it. Fair enough, I understand it. But we're going against free will because of those idiots. They're still playing the game. This is what I said in Cosmic Voice, and people didn't like it then when I was criticising Trump. Trump's not the problem. It's the system. So whether Trump is the second coming of Christ, it makes no difference if the system operating behind it is corrupt. It just is. You've got thousands of women, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands even, marching against Trump for an alleged comment made 12 years ago apparently. And that's something to march for. And yet these same women subject their children to vaccines and indoctrination programs called education and do nothing. Now that's insanity. Sat there, well, California offered kids, certain schools, candy in exchange for vaccines, and don't tell your parents. Remember that last year? You haven't heard nothing since. Why haven't they marched on that? Why haven't the women in California marched on Nestle and shut it down while they struggle with no water? Why haven't the women in Illinois marched on the government building and shut them down, and the water company for what they've done there? But no, let's march against Trump because he made one disparaging remark about a woman or a group of women. Heaven forbid any of us set ourselves up as any sort of standard, because we've all said things we've regretted in our lives many times over. All of us have been sexist in one way or racist in one way, or anti-gender at certain times. Don't kid yourself that you're not. Just mask it better, because each and every one of us has done it. Hundreds of thousands of women marching over one remark. And you wonder why people look at Americans as being stupid. Is that a representation of we the people? No, it's not. But surely those women that marched can see there's far better things to march against than any perceived comment made apparently 12 years ago. It's utter madness on a mass scale. That's the worrying aspect. It's not that it was just a single view, like the normal was. En masse. To me, this suggests a deeper element that I've initiated investigations into. How can you get over 100,000 women to march on one item when I can think of 100 reasons to march off the top of my head and spend the rest of the show mentioning them? Where was the marches against idiot Bush? Mission accomplished, 2003, and yet we're still bringing soldiers back in body bags 14 years later. Where's the marches for that? Where's the marches for all the veterans that are lying on the street because they've got no beds or no homes and no food? Where's the marches for that? Where's the marches for the 500,000 children that go missing in America every year, never to be returned. Go and march for that. Or they're cutting this programme and that programme, or telling you your social security is now like some sort of giveaway, handout. Where's the marches for that? Or the increased taxes? Or the billions sent to Israel to supply weapons to kill other people? Where's the marches for that? But no, let's go and march against Trump. Have we lost our collective minds in this country? How are we going to change things when you've got thousands marching like that? And not only that, we then get into our numbers were bigger than your numbers. Oh, dearie me, the comparative mind. Trump only had X amount, Obama had this. Big effing deal. Who cares whether there was one there or 1 billion? It has no relevance to we the people. None. We still have USA Inc. government services, not USA of America government under the organic constitution. Why haven't they marched against the Federal Reserve, a rogue entity who's now not even in charter? Why haven't they marched against the IRS, who's not even stationed in America? It's in Puerto Rico, who have told you that the taxes are voluntary, and yet we all pay it. And we expect it to fix things, doing idiocy like that. No, we have to think and we have to act differently. We can't change things in a system that's not designed to be changed. The only way you change things is from within, which a lot of our listeners do. You change it from within. And then you create a system whereby we don't need them. So we will fix our issues. We don't need them to fix our issues, whether that be Trump, Hillary, Ryan, or anyone else they want to throw up. They're not our candidates. They never were. And the sooner the people of this country realises they're not our candidates, then the sooner we can realise we have a problem, and here's the solution. We're going to put X, Y and Z in to act like the government is supposed to do here, for and by the people. Then we will get real change. Hi all, and welcome back to the final hour this evening. Those two songs, Our Time Is Now and Light Up. This is what we have to do. The less we focus on what they're doing, and the more we focus on what we can do, the quicker we move forward. And this, as harsh as some of the things I've said tonight, this is the reality. Like I said about the 100, there are no good guys. It's up to us to create them. It's up to us to create an environment of caring and sharing wherever we go, where everyone pulls in the same direction, whether you're Republican, Democrat, or whatever. They're all part of the divide and conquer. I saw a comment briefly on the page. It's not about anti-immigration, it's about illegal versus legal. There is no legal or illegal. This planet belongs to all of us. Those imaginary lines on the pieces of paper that they call borders, and then they put nice little names inside and call countries like America or Mexico. It's an imaginary line for divide and conquer. Once we the people see through that and come together as a collective, the cabal, or the elites, or the politicians, or anybody else you want to mention and throw in, cease to exist. It's that simple. Everything has a simple solution. It's just they that make life complex and appear hard, and we can't do this and we can't do that. We can do anything we choose to do, as long as we all get behind it. There's many examples all around the world, even the last few years, of people deciding they've had enough and got together and says that's it. I made an example last week, Israel people and people of Palestine, thousands of them, tens of thousands in fact, marching together, laughing and joking together, finding out the real truth, that the person on the other side of the wall is not the enemy. The person who built the wall was the enemy. And this is what we're facing in America. The Mexicans are not the enemy of the American people. They never were. It's the ones who choose to build the wall that are the enemy. Divide and conquer. It's the oldest book in the game. Everywhere you look, what once was whole regions split and divided into little tiny countries because it's easier to manage. Why do you think they went into Iraq? And what did they do? They split it into sections. Said it was to do with religious purposes, but it's not. You create imaginary lines and imaginary borders and walls. It then causes a psychological division. It's like the same in your brain, left and right hemisphere. Why is your brain always battling? When does it stop battling? When you balance the left and right hemisphere. When does your body stop battling? When you balance all of your chakras. Not divide them, not put a wall at the gut or at the solar plexus or at the heart, because it blocks the whole system. When there's a free flow of energy, things work. When you put up borders and separate, then it creates fear. The other ones on the other side of the wall, they're all savages and they're going to come to kill us or drug us or whatever. Is the whole of Mexico like that? Or the whole of Central America? And like I said earlier, which particular division of American government, in inverted commas, has been in all them countries peddling their filth? They're the ones responsible for the drugs. Maybe they're the ones that we need to be looking at walling in. You know, it takes a while for people to trust, and I understand that. Do I trust everyone? Sadly, no. I don't even trust enough in the alternative media. But we can't carry on mistrusting everybody else because they're on the other side of an imaginary line. We just can't. We need those people. We need the Mexicans, we need the Hondurans, we need the Guatemalans, the South Americans, we need the people of Europe, we need the people of the Middle East and the people of Asia to all rise up and come together and say, you know what, cabal, stick it. We don't want or need your superpowers control or your financial systems or your skullduggery and bullshittery. We just don't want it. It all goes away. So please think about what you're saying or asking for when you're talking about building walls. It really isn't good. Some questions and some answers. I'll try my best. Some of them look kind of tough this week, but I'll try anyway. 2 questions in one. One from Matthew and one from Mark. Very biblical names, them, isn't it? Both run along with the question about the factions. Can I give an update on the current status of the factions? What is driving this major push, especially since the Trump election, on the Jesuit Pope, the Vatican and the Knights of Malta, and the CIA factions and their relationship to the 5 factions, including driving CIA battles and relationships with UN and NATO? I did cover some of that, but I'm going to go over some of it again. What's going on in the Vatican is the Jesuits, whilst they are perceived as having control, don't. Now, people think it's always been part of the Jesuits. The reality is it hasn't. The last Pope was a Nazi, and so the Nazis ran the Vatican for a period. We had secret society people, P2 Lodge. Some are good, most are not. But the real control system, like everywhere else on this planet, is hidden. The Jesuits are the ones profit forward to take the abuse. It always works that way. It's a bit like Obama and Trump for that matter. They'll carry the abuse, but the reality is it's the string pullers of the puppets that are the problem. And the real problem with the Vatican is the black nobility. The Medicis, the Aldobrandis, the Orsinis. These are your original 13 families. These are the ones that originally caused all the mayhem. Then you've got another set of 13 families that are the Bundys, and funny enough, the Kennedys. As much as one particular Kennedy is adored in this country, the reality is his family were far from nice. And a number of others, more familiar names, but in essence they're more the bloodline families. The real control has been the black nobility, and there's a split again where you've got the families, the Jesuits and the secret societies which the Knights of Malta operate under, doing battle, and it's now being displayed publicly. I covered the issue and the history of the Knights of Malta recently. But basically the Vatican or the Jesuit Pope is being told, or is implementing, one or the other, doesn't really matter, and he's chosen to throw out all the Freemasons out of the Vatican because the Knights of Malta had the audacity to give condoms out, which is against Catholic law. Who gave them that authority? The answer is we did. We allowed them to do it. telling them to stick it where the sun don't shine. So this is another example of the faction infighting that I've been telling you about for long enough, and I've said it's all going on behind the scenes, and I know people are getting sick of that term, like the soon and the imminent and all that, and 2 weeks. Well, we all love that 2 weeks one. But it's now, I said, eventually it will come into the public. You're now seeing it. The CIA factions are what was formerly one group: National Zionist, which is Nazi. That's where the term comes from. National being fascist, which is also patriotic. Being a patriot is being a fascist. It's just a fancy name. It means you have a love of the country over the love of the people. Recognise the words for what they stand for, and please stop saying patriots. They're playing the same game on us as they did in Germany. But patriotism is the same as fascism. So the Jesuits tried to curry favour, and this is why the Pope was over here and in South America last year or the year before. It failed. It left then the US being down to, instead of 3.5 factions, and I'll explain half in a minute, the Jesuits, the Nazis, and also the Zionist group, which is probably our biggest problem here, and the secret societies with the Scottish rites that run behind the scenes. Of course, we've also got the mafia here, which is also part of the black nobility. That's where it came from. So we're kind of down to 2 factions now, which is the Nazi group and the Zionists in America. Some of the secret society people have decided that they're going to help. Not all, but sufficient. So that's kind of where we're at with the factions. The Asian faction have made all kinds of threats to America, as outlined in this show last year. Threats on our sovereignty, threats on our resources and its people, and it's all failed. The evidence of that is the Rothschilds now trying to get back into the West. They obviously don't think they've backed the winner by staying with the Asian faction. So all the Chinese, bogus Chinese elders and the bogus Chinese dragons, like I said, they failed. So I hope that helps with what's going on. As for the UN, they're being declared null and void by the day, as more and more countries are seeing that they're out of charter, they're out of sovereignty, and so they have no rights to issue any directives whatsoever and impose any sanctions or programs onto any country. So I'm hoping now we'll get an update on how many of the 109 who signed up to the Paris Treaty have now reversed it, because the UN didn't have the authority to issue it. NATO, as I said earlier, is Nazi faction. Why do you think they're attacking the west side of Russia? Who attacked the west side of Russia in World War II? Same people. Where are we next? If there is no such thing as blue aliens, how is it that Lily Earthling ties them into the Saturn Matrix negative timeline? Well, this was something Lily said in 2015. Things change, opinions change, and Lily's on next Sunday at 7 PM Eastern Standard Time, not the usual time of 8. She'll be on at 7, and I'll ask the same question. But the Blue Avians were part of the false program, as we described, what was it, May 2014, was it? Something like that, when I counteracted Corey Goode and his Blue Avians for what it is. And I think by now people all realise that it's total BS, it always was. Now the Saturn Matrix is part of the hologram system, part of the control system. I'm not so sure I would describe it as a timeline. I would describe it as a program, but not necessarily a timeline, as often people get the terminology mixed up between timelines and others, dimensions even. But I'll ask the same question, but the answer will be to do with the holographic nature, but they don't exist, and neither does the Saturn Matrix anymore. Is the next big wave of energy to be trusted at all? Yep, because the wave X, like we were telling people on Cosmic Voice, and that clown who was propagating it all, was part of the cabal redirect of the frequencies. That has now been stopped, and so all energy waves are now for our benefit. At the end of the day, it's up to the individual whether you trust it. It's your soul at the end of the day. If you don't feel that it's beneficial to you, then you have the free will to block it. Not so sure that's a good idea, but it's your own free will choice. Can we rely on our heart instincts if our pineal glands are compromised through AI? Yeah. Again, it comes down to free will. It's up to you to learn how to counteract it and block it. If you operate in the heart and outside of the matrix, which each and every one of you who listens to this show is capable of doing, how can you be compromised by AI? You're not in it. Now, as I understand it, the AI is now being shut down or has been negated to a point where it's not compromising us anymore. Others may argue different. That's my opinion. What we're seeing here now is our own issues. The Draco's not here to control us anymore. The parents are at a point of being irrelevant. The Covenants have shut down. The Illuminati are all spending too much time fighting each other to be bothered about us. It's up to us now. Are we going to continue to think we're in this prison planet operating under AI and where we've got no say or no control over? Or are we going to pick up ourselves up and fight back and go, you know what, I'm not accepting your reality, and we're going to create our own. We are creators at the end of the day. We've just forgotten. So the person who asked the question, it's a very good and very valid question, but it's another example of imposing limitations on yourself and on the collective. Stop limiting yourself. Override the AI if you think the AI still exists. Override it. Create an energy field around you where the AI doesn't exist. You can operate in any instinct then. That's how you change it. I've always said change comes from within. You don't have to accept what they're giving us. Are our crown chakras linked to spirit affected by AI controls? If you allow it. Again, it's down to your own limitations. I refuse to have that interfere. I'm standing in my own sovereignty. I've been outside the matrix. I can go outside the matrix. If I choose to come back in and accept that AI control, whose fault's that? The AI? No, mine. You clear all your chakras and it can't interfere. Now your spirit, depending on what soul level you're at, can go into certain realms that won't be beneficial. I'll cover this more in a later show. It's up to you, the individual, to correct that. This question has been sitting on the show page for a while, so I didn't know too much on it, although I do have some bits on it. And could I enlighten you on the tribe of Dan? Are they also Phoenicians? Technically yes, but they were one of 12 tribes, or 12 sects. You know, divide and conquer. It was taking place then, just like it is now. Now the funny thing is the tribe of Dan, modern scholars will use the scales of justice to represent the tribe of Dan, which is in Hebrew means judge. Now more traditional scholars use a snake to represent the tribe of Dan, based on Genesis. Let Dan be a serpent by the roadside, a horned viper by the path that bites the horse's heel, so that the rider tumbles backwards. Now in the book of Revelation it mentions that people from the 12 tribes of Israel will be sealed. The selection of the 12 tribes doesn't actually include the name or tribe of Dan or Ephraim, although their names were later used for the 12 tribes that settled in the what is known as the Promised Land. Now, the primary trait characteristic, which is highly unusual for Israelite tribes of the time, was the tribe of Dan was seafaring. Now one must ask the question, if they were known for being seafarers, was the tribe of Dan actually the tribe of Tuatha De Danann? Think about that. Tuatha De Danann is the people of Ireland. I've said in a previous show, I don't believe the Exodus was out of the Middle East. The Exodus was into the Middle East from the people of Ireland. This is why a lot of the pharaohs, in inverted commas, had red hair. Oops. So they were not Egyptians. Red hair is only prominent in 3 places mainly, which is Peru, Ireland and the Basque region. So the tribe of Dan may actually have been the people of Ireland and not Phoenicians or Israelite tribes. Maybe. Something to think about. Is Michael Shrimpton a reliable source of intel? I am not overly familiar. I know he got given jail for exposing too much, either he was set up or whatever. That's as much as I know. I get next question, I get a dull pain in my inner ears, sometimes the left ear, sometimes the right. What would be the cause of that? Difficult to say. I don't think it's anything to do with the frequencies. Given it's particularly dull, you'd have to describe what he meant by dull, or how dull. You know, So I can't really give you too much of an answer on that. On last week's show, the previous week, we were talking about synthetics. By synthetics, do you mean the ones we create with our own thoughts, or the ones Maya places in the background to fill up the scene? Both. We have to create their reality for them to exist, but it also fills up in the background of the hologram. Mixture of both, as I understand it. What percentage of the natural world? I think the last I heard was 93%. I don't know whether that's changed. Here's an interesting question. Do we still have the possibility of our souls getting trapped and not being free once our body dies if we make the wrong decision upon our death on which way to go? To heaven, which is really hell, or the other way? What is the other way, and where does the other way take you? My understanding that the possibility of being soul trapped ended in 2014 when that particular technology was stopped permanently. That is my understanding, that is my strong belief, that was implemented at that time. So the ones that have died since have gone on their soul path, whichever that may be. Now, the idea that you die and go to heaven or you go to hell is an illusion. Heaven and hell is a state of being, not a location. It's a state of mind. Now, in the special show I'll be covering more of this, but the reality of heaven and hell is also played out in the astral. The lower astral would be what we perceive as hell, and the upper astral is what we perceive heaven to be like, as told by the religious doctrine we've all been brainwashed with. So there's elements of that in the astral levels, but the idea that, well, I've been good this lifetime, so I'm getting a nice ride on a cloud and I'm going to heaven, and we're all going to have peace and love and all that, is rubbish. It's part of the religious construct, and the idea that we actually die even, and so everyone fears dying. Again, it's a fear program, and it's a part of the construct. The death of the vessel is the beginning of the next part of your soul journey. Now, we've had a problem with this system and this particular planet of being reincarnated back into the loop. Get back into the game. Isn't it fun how we all kill each other and torture each other and compete with each other? I think we're all sick of that game now, and it's time for our souls to really develop. In essence, you could look at it another way. The soul learning we've had amongst the hideousness of this game we've been stuck in, this holographic reality where the soul is imprisoned inside this vessel. The learning we've had will be far more than the damage we've received. So the soul growth we've had is going to be beneficial as we go on in our next lives, because of what we've had to endure in these. So there is no real good or bad. Like I said earlier, it's all about learning experience. We've learned some ridiculously harsh lessons in this lifetime and the previous ones. For those of you who remember being in all of the loops, all 6 of them, some really extraordinary amounts of pain and trauma as the movie gets repeated and repeated and repeated. Well, we really should have learnt after the 3rd one. By the 3rd one you can see a pattern developing. There's no way we should have been in there for 6. That's a bit of stupidity on our part. We should have learnt our lessons and moved on. Yes, it was stacked against us, there's no question of that. Adding little parts of the game, the totalitarian creep. But there should have been an option of an easier out than what we've been given, instead of having to bring souls in from the outside to go in and be imprisoned themselves at great risk to save the ones in the box. But that's what's took place. So I hope I answered the question suitably. Please don't worry about death, and please don't worry about going the wrong path on death. The Draco Mantid program has ended. The treaty you spoke of, has it been signed by all the indigenous parties? Yes, paperwork's complete. It's going or has gone off to the relevant parties or companies or organisations where it needs to be fully implemented. So hopefully we'll get more than that soon. They were talking about a big ceremony of all the tribes being together for the final rubber stamping of it by the native tribe, ritual of some sort. Or I shouldn't say ritual, a ceremony. I shouldn't have said that. Ritual. Well, enough rituals. I didn't quite see, I refused to watch their type of bullshittery, but I didn't notice, but maybe some of the members could mention it. But there was a mention that the flag at the inauguration had no fringes on it. I don't know whether that was true or not. If it is, it's a good sign. Maritime law, goodbye. 'What is going on? 25. What is going on? What is going to be the status of all dirty oil projects that are not needed due to zero point energy and other hidden technologies? Excuse me, I'm still suffering the back end of this cold. The hidden technologies are supposed to be coming out and an end to the filthy oil projects. Dirty oil is only needed as a transition to the free energy of source discovered by Tesla over 100 years ago. Yeah. Like everything else, it'll be phased in and phased out, but when you've got factions in government positions and positions of power that are heavily invested in said technology, which is ancient technology, which is oil, then we're still going to have fun and games and wars of what can be released and what can't. So it's up to Mr. Trump, if he's going to be a man of the people, to reverse that ridiculous decision he made this week. You can't be a man of the people and issue pipeline directives that the people don't want. You know, oil's not going away anytime soon. Will it phase out? Absolutely, it has to. We're going to start developing a new way of being on this planet, and if we're really interested in the environment, then we don't need oil. It can be transitioned out. There's a lot of countries that have no energy. Use the oil there until the Western world, or westernized world, has received the free energy, and we phased out oil by using it in the countries that have no energy at all. They'll be more than delighted with the oil energy, because they've got none. No electricity, nothing, no heating. So that's a way of increasing the productivity in many aspects of oil, because there's only 5% of the world that's developed. That doesn't mean to say we have to develop the other 95%, but there's an awful lot of countries that are just not developed at all, including one that's the two highest population, so-called population ones anyway, India and China. There's vast parts of their country with no power, or water for that matter. So those countries can be brought up to speed with the old technology, whilst the new technology is released in the Western world. Eventually you can then phase the undeveloped world out and into new technology. That's the way to do it. Then the oil people are happy, because they're still getting paid for the oil they produce, although they have to be controlled on the cost and the price of it, and not play fun and games on stock markets. So it doesn't necessarily have to mean, well, we don't want that no more and we just cut it off. But suddenly you're cutting thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of jobs off, if you decide tomorrow we're ending oil. Because we've got nothing ready. It has to be phased in and phased out. But that's one way to do it. Has Trump been told about the hidden energy technology? As I understand some of it, yes. Whether he's been shown it to be real is another matter. But I do believe he has been told, given one of his comments mentioned about future technologies. I suggest he has. Do we have any intel at all about Trump really being on the people's side? Well, I think I've answered that quite clearly before. You can't be on the people's side when you're issuing directives for pipelines that the people didn't want and still don't want. There's a lot of panic behind the scenes that particular pipeline is going to cause civil war. I had one or two very prominent calls from known people on Monday evening panicking over Trump's issuing of the pipeline in Dakota. They're going to cause civil war unless you fix it. So they're asking me and the people that support this show to fix it. As I understand, they will. But it's not a good example Trump says, is it? Whether you like the man or you don't, you have to look at it for what it is and not see the illusion. Is it possible Donald is an interim president? Absolutely. It's also up to the people behind the scenes to fix the matter, where they're operating more on behalf of humanity than on behalf of corporations and cabal. If that takes place, then Mr. Trump will be given an opportunity to carry that platform forward. If he wants to play faction games and be in the pockets of certain Zionist controllers, then it will be interim. If all or most of the swamp isn't drained by the end of 2017, will our galactic family or council step in and finalise things instead of letting them continue to be drawn out for several more years? Good question, and you're going to get a good answer. It might not be the one you like, but you're going to get a good answer. The idea of any advanced race coming in and rescuing another race or species out of a situation they created goes against all universal and cosmic law. It goes down to free will. The whole planet's not crying for them to come and fix it. Heaven forbid they do, because basically we've just put ourselves back into the loop. There is no, we have to get out of our thinking process, and I know we've all been brainwashed, myself included, of which I've promoted some of it, I might add, so I'm not blameless either. Bring the ET down and fix it. No. We fix it. That's the harsh reality, like I laid out in the Future of Humanity show. ETs are not coming down to fix our mess we created, because we have created it. Yes, there's other elements, and I've said this time and time again, but the mess we have now is largely a human mess. Most of the ETs are gone. A couple of ETs here and there cannot control the whole planet. It's the idiot humans who are following their stupid directive, and then not only following their former directive, but following their program. This is what's playing out now. Humans who think they can be the same controllers as the Draco. So you might as well put lizard heads on, because they're operating the same way, the same type of chaos and carnage and death and destruction and fraud and corruption and greed. They're acting the same as the Draco. So should any Galactic Council come down and fix our mess when we're allegedly 6.5 billion and they're 500 million or less, a lot less now from what I gather, and we're allowing them to control us? 99% versus 1%. How would that look if you were an ET looking at this planet, where you're seeing a little tiny number in the middle of a vast planet controlling the whole thing? How would you look at it? And you wonder why they think we're backwards or we're unintelligent. It's utter madness. 99% of us are allowing 1% to control and dictate how we live our lives. This has to change. So we have to change the way we think. Never ever ask for ET to come down and fix our mess. That then means we are still children and we are incapable of looking after ourselves, and so we need parents or Draco or Mantids or some other hideous bug-eyed creature to come and look after us. No, we can look after ourselves once we've dealt with the clowns that are running around acting like Draco. I'm glad you asked that question, because it needs to be said. We don't need parenting or control systems to look after us. We can look after ourselves. Now let's go out and prove it. Let's show the council that we can be, not look like savages cutting each other's down, divide and conquer, competing, taking each other out, haves and have-nots. Very few caring about whether the neighbour's surviving or not, or the elderly have got enough food or heating. That's not civilised. Caring, sharing, looking after each other it is, and it's time all of us started doing that. Where are we next? Oh, there's the time. I've come across a person called Sheldon Nidal. Have you heard of him? And is he speaking truth? Well, I think I've been ranting enough tonight. Mr. Nidal has some nice messages. Please pluck those nice messages out of it and throw the rest in the trash, because channeling, as we've said for long enough, is not reliable. It's mainly grey technology, and they tell you what you want to hear, not what's actually taken place. You know, he's another one that's been pushing RVs for the last 5 or 6 years. It's coming, dear ones. We're coming to save you, dear ones. We don't want no patronising ETs coming to save us at all. We'll save ourselves, Mr. Nidal and others. Anyone who's doing channeling is suspect. Sorry, just is. I don't care who the name is. Of course, we had one rather prominent channeler who came out and told you exactly what it was when he realised he's been duped. Kudos to him. I wish the others hadn't done it. Do you know what's going on with the back and forth dealing with the Queen of England? Their website keeps putting up the information and taking it down. Are they winding us up, or is the validation to her death? No, she's not dead. It's part of the factions game again. There's a split between her and the big-eared one. It's the son known as Charles, aka Helicopter Head. And he seems to think he's in control now, being a sovereign. That's that term again, told you to watch out for it. And he thinks he can sign off on all the resources and the people of the UK. He's found out he may be able to do it, but he won't be able to implement it. The Queen has refused, as a sovereign, to sign the bogus RVs and the TRM and all the other bullshit programs that they're coming up with. I think it's a bit of wouldn't say she was operating on behalf of the people, but we're getting benefits for the people, but a lot of it's to do with the anger of her being stripped of her own wealth to keep the higher echelons in place. All those bars of gold where she was walking through the warehouse that was displayed in the UK papers a few years, every single bar was taken off her to keep certain ones in the game. So she's not too happy that she's lost everything. Maybe she realises what we've been going through. Bit of karma, you bet. Can you explain what is a time loop? Oh, I did that about 5 or 6 shows back. I'll briefly cover it again. During the Atlantic War, there was much turmoil, and there was heavy fighting on this planet. It was nothing to do with the humans that were here at the time, and we ended up being taken out of the trauma and pain, and ended up in a situation where it became holographic in nature and almost like a movie. So we became part of the movie. Now the wave, the natural wave, was intersected with a wave that went across it, that once, if you do it like overlaying the wave and then turn it 6 to 12 o'clock, what you will see is a load of figure eights. That's the loop, and it's 13,000 years long, and we didn't work it out how to get out of it, and so we ended up in the next loop and the next loop and the next loop. This time, the sixth time, it ended. The loop was cut. So there's no more intersecting of the organic timeline or wave frequency that we operated on with the inorganic overlay frequency that created the loop, which is the Mobius. More new age bullshit. Now in the series The 100, they told you that you had to take a pill that took all the pain and trauma away. Sound familiar? Should be, because that's when we went into the loop. In the movie, or in the series, it says you go into the city of light. It takes all the pain and trauma away. So all the wars that were going on and we were terrified, it took all the pain and trauma away by taking the pill. In other words, we become part of the holograph. The real us is outside of here. This is not the real us on Earth. That's the illusion. Now the other thing they did is when you took the pill, they took the pain away, they took the trauma away, and they took your memory away. And that's what's basically happened to humanity over this duration. What's happening now, we're stepping out of the hologram, the illusion, and what's coming back now is the pain and the trauma and the memory. And you wonder why some of the females are losing it. They're more sensitive than us men. That's why I said at the beginning of the show, it's important we deal with the pain, we deal with the trauma in the right way and react in the right way. Don't lose it. Stay calm, process it, go through it, use the inner work you've already done. That makes it a lot easier to deal with. This is why, going back 2 years, I was telling you all, do your inner work, because everything what was there at the beginning is there now. So the people or the souls that were there at the beginning are also here now. The trauma and pain that was there at the beginning are also at the end. Now you know why I asked you all to do the inner work. So we have to deal with our own pain and our own trauma and some of the decisions that we made. Recognise them as good lessons to learn, never to be repeated, and go back into this hellhole of a system that's being created partly by our own selves. Yes, we can blame Draco and on others, but created beings being trapped in a hologram with all the abilities that we had, how's it possible? Unless we gave something away. And that's what the book The Enlightenment that I read just before Christmas is all about, how much we gave away to play the game. We don't have to play their game. The way out is to play ours and ignore their game, ignore their reality, ignore their politics. Let's create our own. That's the journey and the path ahead of each and every one of us. Yes, there will be people who come forward that you'll look up to, that you think these people can drive us forward. You always get that in society, but don't look up to them as some sort of leader or saviour. The saviour is you, and you, and you, and all the other thousands that listen to this show. Each and every one of you is the saviour. Don't limit your own abilities ever. Stay strong, stay prepared, and most importantly, never let anyone put you in any fear. That's part of the illusion that keep you down. It really is. Right. If you lead life in love and care, you will prevail. If you lead life in fear and anger, you will fail. Feel free for you to be the person you wish to be, not the person who conforms to what others want them to be. Remember that. Stay in your own sovereignty, that is what that means. You are a multi-dimensional being operating simultaneously on many levels. You are not here to conform. You are not here to be stifled. You are not here to be enslaved. You are not here to be abused. You are also not here to compete with your friends, family or neighbours. You are here to be the best you can be, and do so as the crown of creation. Now go out with the confidence of who and what you are, and excel in yourself, and in doing so inspire others. I hope you've enjoyed the show. My name's Thomas Williams. This has been The Truth, Honour and Integrity. Remember, you're the voice, not just me. You, each and every one of us. Bye for now.